Welcome back to Questing Beast. Today we're going to be looking at these 3 books from the Blood and Bronze fantasy role-playing series. These books are review copies that were sent to me by one of the authors, Olav Nygaard. So thanks to Olav for sending them. We're going to go through them, look through what's inside, and help you decide whether these are the right kind of role-playing game books for you. So as I said, I have 3 books here, but we're going to start off with the main one, Blood and Bronze, which is the rule system, and then we're going to look at the 2 adventures that you can also get. So what sets Blood and Bronze apart? Unlike a lot of fantasy role-playing game series, this is set in mythic Mesopotamia. So if you like the idea of ancient Babylon and ziggurats and those strange, weird old gods from those stories, then this is a great choice for you. There are very few games that tackle this setting, and so this sets it apart automatically. Let's look at what we have inside. By the way, I'm sorry if the sound quality is a little bit low. I'm getting a lot of air traffic overhead. Not really sure why, but what can you do? So first off, we come to this beautiful map right off the bat. It has a lot of character to it. It's very distinct. There's a very faint hex grid overlaid on it, so it allows you to do hex crawling if that's what you want to do. But I was impressed right away opening this up. I especially like the size of it. This book has a lot of very large illustrations that use all of the space that they have, and that's great. For example, every chapter has a huge 2-page full bleed illustration, and I just love these. It's unusual to see small independent games have art that's this large and this excellent. It reminds me of David Macaulay's art. He did a lot of kids' books about castles and pyramids and things like that with this incredible amount of detail, and I'm seeing something very similar here. I love it. It's very immersive. You feel like you are there in a distinct historical epic, and it pulls you right into the story. This is not low-quality art. Someone put a lot of time and work into this. So we start off with an overview of what is Blood and Bronze and what is a role-playing game in general. What is high adventure, and it gives you some resources to look at. And we start off on page 9 with a rules summary. And this is a great idea that I wish more books would do. Especially if you've played other role-playing games, it's wonderful to be able to have a 1-page summary of what makes this different. What should I expect coming into this? And it allows you to get all of the rules of the game and get them all into your head all at once. So you have a great understanding of the system as a whole instead of having to piece through it bit by bit. Chapter 2, The World of Blood and Bronze. So it talks about the setting, the time period, the things you need to know about the economics of that area, what the gods are like. There was a recent flood that almost destroyed the world, so it has that mythological aspect baked into it. We have the main cultures that you're going to encounter and what makes them distinct, including things like the Akkadians, the Amorites, and the Sumerians. So a lot of these are, of course, real cultures. Player characters. This is a great illustration of robbing a tomb from thousands of years ago. Creating adventurers. So I want to start pointing something out right now, and that is that the layout and the typography of this are just top-notch. Everything is very easy to read, and especially it is very well laid out. We don't see many rules bleeding from one page to another. We don't see a lot of things getting cut off. Rules are very compact, and so much attention has been paid to how much space it takes up on the page and where it is on the page. You don't see that kind of attention to detail usually. You certainly don't see it in Wizards of the Coast games. So that is great to see. We have an 8-step process for making your adventurer. Some information about improving your character. Now, this I found a little bit confusing. There's a rank system, and you can have class ranks, and you can have ranks in different covenants you make with different gods. And I found it a little bit difficult to try and figure out how all of that worked together and what it was like in play. And I wish there was some examples given of what it was like to actually improve your character. And we have our classes. So our classes are somewhat similar to D&D, but there are some distinct differences. So for example, we have a mercenary instead of a warrior, and there's a whole bunch of different specializations you can get as you improve your character. We have the rogue, about what you would expect. They have things like mimicking, dirty tricks, dual wielding, reflexes, night vision, thieves' poison, etc. We have the mystics, which is one of the magic classes. They use lotus magic, so they have lotus powder that they have to take in order to cast specific spells. We have desert farers. I guess they're kind of like the Fremen from Dune. And they have things like being great at traveling, specialization, pathfinding, and so on. If you want to be a mysterious desert nomad. We have the courtesan, which is very unusual as a class for this type of game, but it adds a lot of flavor to the particular setting. So you're the charismatic character. And you have abilities like allure, reminiscence, dream speaker, beast call, lip reading, theatrics. So it's a bit like a bard in some sense, but it's not as bland as a bard. It's much more specific. And we have the seer, another magic using class. They use bone sorceries, dead memories, farsight, premonitions, witch flame, evil eye. So all the magic, again, feels like the type of historical magic you would read about in these old stories. It doesn't feel like the kind of gonzo, Vancian magic that you tend to see in D&D games. Favorite character sheet. And we're going through weapons and equipment. Great image of what a palace would look like. We'll just go through this really quick. There's a fatigue system for keeping track of encumbrance, your common goods, the types of weapons that you can get. Effects for drinking or sniffing, I suppose, lotus powder, which anyone can use, but really only the magic users should be using. Same with bone salt. And the rules of the game. So let's look through this. The rules of the game are not, strictly speaking, D&D. It's an OSR game in the sense that it has the same attitude of a lot of player creativity and high lethality and fairly simple, straightforward rules. But it is not D&D. So if you were going to use D&D, or if you were going to use this to play D&D modules, there would be conversion involved. You would have to really think through how you were going to convert it. There are some similarities, to D&D rules, but the twists are big enough that a straightforward conversion wouldn't be very easy. So we have our basic abilities. In this case, they're called Guile, Lore, Sense, Craft, Vigor, and Might. And originally they range from 3 through 12, but they can go up to 18, similar to D&D. But instead of having your typical modifiers, there's an ability rating attached to each of the ability scores, going from 1 through 6. How this works is that your ability score, which, as I said, originally is from 3 through 12, is used as your saving throw. You try and roll under it. And I think that works well as a saving throw. In some games like the Black Hack, your abilities can go all the way up to 18, and having that as a saving throw makes it very likely to succeed, which I don't think is a great idea for saving throws. So having it 3 through 12 is a good move, I think. However, attached to each of them is an ability rating, and this is the number of D6s that you roll when you try a skill roll. So you're trying to roll 5s or 6s. The more dice that you get, the more likely that is to happen. The more 5s and 6s that you roll, the better that your effect is. You need at least 1 in order to make a basic success. And so again, we see a great example of layout here, where the skill tests are right here, saving throw explanation is right here, an explanation of how saves work is right here. There's a lot of thought to just how this is designed. I like these big fat numbers for everything too. It makes things easy to reference. We have skills can alter the outcomes of different things. You can influence people in different ways. We have a nice chart down here looking at the percentages of the possibilities for rolling different numbers of dice, what the likelihood of successes are. That's really great to see, because that way it isn't so abstract. People can look at the actual odds. We have a system of movement that's zones, similar to what we see in the Black Hack. Rounds, initiative, surprise, nothing too surprising there. So combat and damage. This is one of the places in the book where I wish there were a lot more examples, because it does work differently, and it was a little hard for me to wrap my mind around how it worked with the D6s and how players or how enemies resisted being attacked and how all of that worked. I would like to see some examples of real play so that I could get a sense, I could get into the flow of it. I could put it together in my head a little bit better. But the explanation is fairly clear, and I think with some careful reading, you could put it together yourself. Some things that really make this stand out are that damage dice always explode. So when you roll the highest on a damage die, it continues to get bigger. So you can do a lot of damage. You can kill people very quickly, meaning that you need to be very cautious, as is typical in OSR games. Also, armor is very distinct here. So there's two kinds of armor. You can either have shields or a standard armor. And if you're holding a shield, then that does straightforward damage reduction. And it always works. Armor, on the other hand, if you're wearing armor, then if you want to use it, you can negate all damage from any attack anytime you want. But every time the armor is used, you have to roll a die. And if it is under the armor's armor value, then the armor is destroyed. So armor can prevent you from taking damage over and over and over again. But once it doesn't, it shatters. Now you don't have armor and you need to replace it. Hit points is called endurance. It's also used for encumbrance. System for rest and recovery. And then we look through how the basic skills work. Basic skills are advise, assess, disguise, expert knowledge, guard, haste, hurl, make, manipulate, search, treat wounds, or use force. There's 2 skills associated with each of the 6 abilities. We have a referee section. I love this because this is a great picture of the types of things that you're going to be doing here. The monsters in Mythic Mesopotamia are deeply weird, and this really brings that out. It's like a sphinx of some sort, but he has like a big braided beard like you tended to see in those old pictures. The referee section is really excellent. It is succinct. It doesn't go on and on and on, but it has concrete pieces of advice, one at a time, with a bolded sentence that is the principle that you're going to be following, and then a sentence that, and then a paragraph that really fleshes it out. This makes it much easier to digest and use and play. You could even have this open and then just look at the bolded sentences, and you would know generally how you're going to play the game. It's a great way to do it. A sample adventure, creating a small dungeon for your players to run through, and it helps you use randomization to create your own dungeon. So not only are we given it a basic adventure to start with, we're given a basic tutorial on how to create your own simultaneously, which is a wonderful idea. Wilderness adventures, expanding the world, misfortunes that you can run into. The Great Barrens of Karkal. So these are random encounters that you can come into. And how to create NPCs. Of course, it has a reaction table. This tiny little table down here at the end is one of the essential pieces of OSR attitude, I suppose. The reaction table allows you to roll a die and see how an NPC reacts to you. This is going to give you a wide variety of types of encounters instead of everything just being a kill fest. We've got some rules for creating NPCs, which are much simpler than your player characters, which is very important because if you're going to be playing a more open world, sandbox world type of game, then you need your NPCs to be quick enough and easy enough to make that you can come up with them on the fly. So I'm glad to see that's in there. Let's take a look at some of the adventures that you can also get for Blood and Bronze. So first off, we have the Wondrous Horde, which is a short little adventure. It is 12 pages long. Has that same great full page art. The dungeon map itself is very clear, very well done. It's done in this isometric perspective style, which allows you to get a much better sense, at least for me, for how things are laid out and spatially what things look like. I love maps that are done this way, and this is very clean, very well done. We have this big room over here with the giant centipede, which I believe is the room right here. So having big pictures like this allows you to get the feel of what it's like to be in there, right, from the perspective of a person walking around inside, which is critical if you're going to be describing this place to your players. So players are venturing into this strange little dungeon. The way that you get there is very interesting. You have to go down a well into this giant basin underground full of water and then drain it, and then you get sucked down a drain and you fall into this room right here, and then you have to explore this place. And then once you escape, there's a boat here in this giant sea, and you have to sail out into the sea for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you can't tell what time it is. And then one day you wake up and you're on the Tigris or the Euphrates. So it has this very dreamlike quality to it, which I really appreciate. You can drop it anywhere into any campaign that you'd like. The locations are all clearly numbered. We have random encounters, which is essential, of course. And we have a lot of weird items: moon garb, silver mask, crescent scepter, and the lunar robe, which are going to allow you to control the moon creatures that lurk in this place. That's kind of the theme. The wizard is very moon themed, and all the items bring that out. There's some great puzzles that you have to work out. There's these little circular or half spherical spheres stuck into some of the walls, and you have to rotate them to match the phases of the moon. And if you do so properly, then like secret doors will open or you'll get other effects. So there's a lot of stuff tying the whole thing together. It's not just one random room after another. A lot of entertaining encounters. There's a lot of ways you can approach the encounters, which is very essential. You can fight things, or you can find a way to control the monsters and bend them to your will. When you enter the dungeon, you're restricted to only carrying out 2 items per person, and if you don't follow that, then there are consequences. Great little dungeon. I'm thinking of just dropping this into my own D&D world, since I don't think there'd be much conversion necessary to do that. Looking forward to it. It's cool. It's short, easy to run, and well designed. The other one is Thralls of the Sun. This one's much bigger. It is 48 pages long. And the basic principle here is that you are slaves underneath one of the ziggurats in the main city. And you need to escape. There's multiple levels to it, so it's kind of a mega dungeon. It's not that much of a mega dungeon, but it's a multi-level dungeon, so it is quite large. You can explore. You have a collar that's been put on you that you need to find a way to take off. There's slave work events. You can work as a slave, which also generates hooks for new adventures and things happening in these underground caverns. Your job is to pump water out to the main city. That's our first level. All the levels are numbered using a cuneiform system of numbering, which is very clever, but I do kind of wish they would have used normal numbers, because you start losing track of what these level numbers refer to. The maps are quite good, and what I especially like is that there are little symbols drawn to certain points on the map to help you remind you what is in each of those. I like that a lot. That shows attention to detail. I would have liked more of that, actually. I would have liked to have short one-sentence descriptions pointing to each room, which would allow the GM to run the game even more smoothly. They would need to have less reference back to the text. Very clearly laid out. We have all our big numbers, so we can easily find which rooms we're talking about. There's a wide variety of encounter types, so tons of role-playing encounters that are possible. We have lots of different slaves you can run into. Each of them has a different roomer. So you could spend a lot of time just exploring, talking to people, making bargains, and learning about the setting. The next level down, much more detailed. Tons of places you can go. There are guards, there are monsters, all sorts of things, especially the deeper down that you go. So beneath the second level, if you just play on the first and second level, then it is possible to escape. There are exits that you can find. But if you want to delve really deep, then you find these undercrypts beneath the slave caverns. And these are much more dangerous and full of these crazy scorpion dudes, which will murder you very quickly unless you know what you're doing or you're at a higher level. So you can take these crypts and pull them out and set them somewhere else in your campaign as a more dangerous dungeon, or you can just leave them down here to see if the players want to find them. We have a big D100 table of crazy treasures that you can get, most of them very Mesopotamian themed, so you can steal this for your own games. And we have the big crypt map under here. All of these maps are very interconnected. They're very web-like, which is great. They're extremely non-linear, and I appreciate that immensely. There are as many ways that players can approach it. They can go one way, find it's too dangerous, go another way. They can try and set ambushes. They can circle back around themselves. All excellent. There is a lot of murals that have writing on them, and you can roll on this to see how much you understand it using your lore. And you can get more and more sentences to understand what the murals are saying. Altogether, it makes one big long paragraph. And we have a final level, the deeper catacombs, full of traps and fire and more stuff to kill your players. So there we go. That is my summary of what you get in Blood and Bronze and the two main adventures that come with it. All of these, as I said, were review copies sent to me, but you can get your own through Lulu. The print quality is really nice. The paper has this sort of grayish quality to it, which for some reason works really well. The texture is really nice. I don't know. I kind of like it. And the images are great. The rules seem very solid. And the adventures themselves can easily be stolen for your own stuff. So if you'd like to take a look at it, check in the description below. I will put links to where you can get it on Lulu. And you can also get them from DriveThruRPG if you want the PDF copies. The Lulu ones are, I think this is about $10, and these are like $5 and $8. They're not very expensive at all. And of course, the PDFs are even cheaper. So that's it for my review of Blood and Bronze, the Mesopotamian fantasy role-playing game. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. I have a wide variety of OSR-type role-playing game reviews. You can join me on Patreon if you want to support me making more videos like this. And I have plenty more videos on this topic that you can watch. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.